Let's bring in Chris Krebs. He's the former director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It's great to have you. I'm wondering what you make of this report, Chris.
Well, look, I don't think it should be surprising to anybody that there's intelligence on Chinese-linked firms, that there's some information sharing between those firms and the Chinese Communist Party. As Eamon said, it's in the national security law. It's required to cooperate with the security services. And just given the sheer amount, the volume, the sensitivity of the data, that a major cloud provider, keeping in mind that Alibaba is a massive cloud provider on a global scale, they've got access to a lot of really, really valuable, interesting, attractive stuff. And the security services are going to want to get in there and get to it.
There's so many questions. You know, how long have we known about this alleged activity? And what are we prepared to do about it? How would that be on your mind if you were still in the role that you had?
Yeah, so I don't know anything about this specific memo, the information that underpins it. But again, when the U.S. government takes action, there's a very sound, solid foundation and footing from an intelligence community perspective, from a risk analytics perspective, from a legal perspective. And if you just look back, and even the TikTok actions, the actions that have been taken against Huawei, SMIC, whether these are sanctions or designations or export controls, there are voluminous records that support these decisions. So I suspect they're taking a hard look at limiting Alibaba activity in the United States, certainly from a defense contractor perspective, from a government contractor perspective, even financial in other larger, more sensitive utilities. And maybe we could see either an executive action or possibly legislative action. And look, the U.S. Congress, at least last Congress, was not opposed to taking hard action against firms where there were national security risks. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that coming forward.
I'm wondering how we should be thinking about this, too, in the context of an AI arms race, where, you know, firms like Alibaba are right there front and center in trying to be as competitive as the United States firms are, and who ultimately is going to win this fact. I remember it was just maybe not even a week ago where Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, suggested that the Chinese are going to win, then had to walk that back a little bit. But this is top of mind, particularly as it relates to AI.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure I'm on board with whether China's going to win the AI race or not. I mean, just look, yesterday you had a report from Anthropic, one of the leading U.S. labs, that showed Chinese intelligence services were using U.S. AI agents. And whether that means the Chinese agents aren't good enough or ours are just readily accessible to hit U.S. targets, there is a lot of concern about modern tech, evolving tech that's being used for economic warfare as well as good old traditional espionage. And we have to continue to stay on top of this threat. And support our own national champions to ensure that we maintain that edge.
Do you think we'll get to a point, lastly, where, you know, U.S. investors, I can look on the screen that I have here in front of me that shows me all of the Chinese tech companies, and I can see how they're trading, and we know of U.S. investors who are putting their money to work in those names. Do you think we get to a point where they are banned, where U.S. investors are not allowed to invest in Chinese companies, and or they're not allowed to even list in the United States?
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I tell you what is happening right now is U.S. companies, European companies. In fact, I was just in Europe earlier this week in a board meeting talking to executives about the risk of using Chinese technology in your tech stacks. What you're going to see first is these companies that are making risk decisions on their technology stack, and both how they operate in the U.S. as well as how they operate in China for manufacturing and supply chain issues, of what they're using, how they're segmenting off global operations to ensure whatever happens in China cannot affect rest of world operations. That is the #1 conversation I'm hearing right now in boardrooms.